Welcome to Scorched Earth and a reading for Virgo. This is going to be slightly different to the sort of readings that I usually put out. As some of you know, I am a shadow worker, and that means that I look for the parts of ourselves that we don't really want to acknowledge exists, the uncomfortable parts, the parts that are rejected, by our family and our peers early on. That stuff that sits behind us that we don't look at. I like to look for that, and I like to try and help people integrate that into themselves to make themselves whole, right? That's a very simplified version of what it is that I do exactly. But yesterday I had this particular oracle deck come through the post, and I've been after this for ages, so I was really pleased when it appeared. And it has an uncanny knack, just like the rest of the Deviant Moon series, in getting right to the root of the matter, the dark stuff, okay? And what I've wanted to do for ages is do shadow reads. And they are, by definition, going to be uncomfortable because they are the parts of ourselves that we don't like to acknowledge exist, right? But that we are very quick to judge in other people. And the aim is that it just starts a train of thought, right? I want you to start questioning yourself, and I want to kind of give you a ballpark area that you need to look at in order to help that process along. Now, in time, if you see some value in these, and this is something that you want me to do, then I'll look at extending it and fleshing them out and making them into, more in-depth reads. But for now, I thought I'd just bang out a quick, 5-10 minute read and see how it resonates with you, right? So I'm going to pull only 3 cards and no clarifiers at this point at all. And the first card will be the main concern, right? The main kind of issue at hand. The second thing will be the root cause, right? What's going on underneath? What is it that's causing this here? And then the third card will be the recommendation, right? Like I said, it's going to be nice and fast. And we're using Mildred Payne's Oracle of Black Enchantment, right? It's absolutely phenomenal. I did a reading for myself, and it was so bang on the nail, I was actually staggered. I was like, wow. So I've drawn the cards already. And what we've got here, first one, number 27, which is called The Drowning. Now, it's fairly obvious what this card means here, right? But the words that go along with it say, a storm could overrun the sky as rain downpours across the land, causing a deluge that will drown both saints and sinners. Now, with this deck, there is a dark and a light meaning. And because we're going for the shadow, we're going to go for the dark in all of it, right? So the dark meaning is feelings of deep emotional overwhelm, being unable to keep up, helplessness, a profoundly daunting situation. Now, if this isn't what you've been going through this year, then I don't know what is, because in the YouTube reads that I've done for the collective for Virgos, there's been this sense of something coming to an end, and it was a fairly abrupt end, but Virgo refusing to release. Now that has shifted, that energy has literally just shifted in the reading that I've done today for the collective, and I'm delighted to see it. It's about time. But this is still here, right? This is still part of your shadow. And what it's talking about is the fact that in the face of something happening like this, it has literally shocked your foundations. I'm looking at these lightning strikes here, and I'm put in mind of the tower. Right? You had a tower moment, but it ended up not being a sudden, sharp shock, which just kind of tore your tower down. It's been really slow and protracted and drawn out because of the emotions in you that it brought up, because of the way that you tried to deal with it, or in some ways did not deal with it, right? This is a shadow read. It's going to be uncomfortable in places. And the thing is, while this is still operative and this is still here, and while this is not brought in, it's possible that another, lightning strike, should it hit, would plunge you straight back into this feeling of helplessness, this feeling of emotional overwhelm, right? So it's speaking to me of and need to become more comfortable with your own emotions. Right? Because I feel like to some of you, you really do kind of push them to the side and you don't consider them. And that's when they come in and broadside you later on. Now, the root cause is card number 32. That's a pretty uncomfortable looking card too. Now, the words for this card, which is called the grave, it says, a rotted corpse lies in its grave, longing to feel the sun again and join the happy dancers above. Now, the dark meaning is, fairly obviously, confinement, feeling trapped or isolated, wishing for something that once was but that can never be again. Now, Virgo, that's exactly the energy that you have been sat in all of this year, all of it. And it's almost like the situation, whatever it was that the lightning strike was, it kind of, it left you feeling isolated, right? Now, in order for something to make you feel a certain sort of way, you have to give it permission to do that. And it was almost like you accepted it, right? Whatever it was kind of left you for dead. That's how it felt. But you accepted that, and you kind of retreated into your coffin where the worms were and sat there, kind of waited to be rescued. There's a real Eight of Swords feel about this. And then spent some time in the coffin, wishing that you could be up here, and maybe resenting the fact that nobody came and dug you out, right? And with this Eight of Swords energy that I'm getting off this card, it is often about wanting to be rescued by someone else. And maybe you put yourself there deliberately under the soil because you were waiting to see who would come and rescue you. Maybe you were making a point, right? The positive thing about this is that I do feel, off the back of the other reading that we did for June, that you are now turning a corner and you do want to be up there, right? So rather than being rescued, you're now looking for ways to go up. And that's really, really positive. But ultimately, the fact that you were down here, kind of where you let yourself be, right? Does make me think in some ways you were waiting to be rescued. Now, if we're waiting to be rescued, it's because we don't feel like we're strong enough to rescue ourselves. So that is something to look at, right? Emotionally. The final card that you've got is the recommendation, right? And this one's called the Angel. Bring my words back. It says, a glorious angel descends from the clouds to remind the demon not to speak so freely. Now, this is quite interesting because the dark meaning of this is gossip, bad rumours, inflammatory remarks, defamation of character, and foul or hurtful language. Now, this is a card that speaks to me of projection very, very strongly. Right? There's a sense here that the lightning hit and it knocked you over, but you deliberately put yourself down there waiting to see who would rescue you. Now that you're starting to come out of that, right, it would be very easy to cast around and look for someone to blame for the fact that you have been down there for months. And I mean, we're coming into June. It's probably coming up 6 months that you've felt this way, right? Now you're coming out. Now, ownership of the shadow involves ownership of all those kind of dark, dingy feelings that we have about things. And it is easy to project onto other people. It's easy to blame for other people. But the second that you cast that responsibility to something outside of yourself, that's you shoving more things into your shadow, right? So maybe you do feel like somebody did you wrong. Okay, they did you wrong. But you can't control them, and you can't control anything outside of your own actions and the way that you think. And so this is kind of suggesting to me that now you are coming out the other side of it. Don't seek vengeance. Don't look to pull someone down to make them feel the way that you let them make you feel, right? Because to some degree, you put yourself down there, waiting. The only way that this emotional turmoil is not going to happen again is if you get in touch with your own emotions and you process those and you take responsibility for the things that require you to take responsibility for, right? Shadow work isn't easy. Shadow readings aren't easy because it's very easy. It's very easy to accept that somebody else's behavior made us feel a certain kind of way, right? When we were young, when we were, we didn't know any better. But as an adult, when an adult relationship that we have in some way makes us feel less than, the truth of the matter is, it can only do so with our permission, right? So that's point number one. The second point is that we're always the hero in our own story, right? Except that we're not. That's the way that we like to see things. And it's important to remember that we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their behavior. Now, if we were to, judge ourselves by our behavior, we might find ourselves a bit lacking. If we were to judge others by their intentions, we might actually feel a little bit more forgiving about them. This is asking you to kind of look within, to resist the urge to cast blame outside of yourself and to take responsibility for your own emotional state and your own emotional well-being, and also the fact that you isolated yourself, right? Maybe as a test for other people, but ultimately it was a state of disempowerment that you put yourself into to see if anybody noticed, right? And that's shadow stuff. Pull that out, look at it, work out why you felt like you needed to do that. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Like I said, if this is something that you're interested in seeing me go into more depth about, and I'll bring the tarot in with it, and some of the darker decks that I've got for shadow work, and bring all of that kind of thing in, then that's cool. If this resonated with you, I'd love it if you would let me know in the comments. That would be awesome. But yeah, give me a bit of feedback, see what you think. I can see how this ties in really, really closely with the read for Virgo. But, I'll be totally guided by you on this one. So, you take care, and I'll see you soon.